Oh, let me tell you, my name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old now. The oldest daughter in our family, always the one who gets pushed aside while everyone else shines. I've got this dream that's been burning inside me since I was a kid, to become a pilot, soaring through the skies and leaving all the mess below behind. But life doesn't work that way in our house. Not with my parents calling the shots and my younger brother, Jake, being their golden boy. Every morning starts the same for me, waking up in our cramped suburban home just outside the city, where I share a room with boxes of old junk because there's no space for anything else. I roll out of bed at 5, splash some water on my face, and head straight to the kitchen to make coffee for everyone before they even stir. My parents, Mom and Dad, they're in their late 50s, retired early after Dad's factory job paid off a bit. But they act like kings in this little castle. Emily, hurry up with that breakfast, Mom would say as she shuffles in, her robe half open, not even looking at me. Jake needs his eggs just right before he heads to class. I'd nod and keep scrambling those eggs, biting my tongue because arguing never gets me anywhere. Jake's 25, studying business at some fancy school, and guess who's footing the bill? Me, with my dishwasher job at the local diner, scrubbing plates until my hands crack and bleed. After breakfast, I'd grab my uniform, that stained apron that smells like grease no matter how many times I wash it, and drive my beat-up old car to work. The diner is this rundown spot on the edge of town with flickering neon signs and customers who tip like misers. I'd clock in, tie back my hair, and dive into the sink full of dirty dishes from the breakfast rush. Hey, you got those pans ready? My boss, Carla, would yell from the kitchen, her voice cutting through the clatter. Yeah. Almost done, I'd reply, plunging my arms into the soapy water, feeling the heat sting my skin. Carla's okay. She's been there forever, but she doesn't know half of what I deal with at home. During my break, I'd sit in the back alley, munching on a leftover sandwich, and that's when the thoughts creep in. Why am I here, wasting away, when I could be up in the air? But then I remember the talks with my parents, how they'd laugh at my dream. Emily, girls don't fly planes, Dad said once, chuckling over dinner. They clean up messes, like you're doing now. Stick to what you're good at. Mom joined in, nodding. Exactly. Honey, we need you to help with Jake's tuition. He's the one with real potential. I'd force a smile, swallow the hurt, and keep washing those dishes, every shift chipping away at my savings that they think goes straight to them. But here's the thing they don't know, I skim a little off the top. Just enough to tuck away for myself. Faute à boire. Nights are the worst. Coming home exhausted, my feet aching, only to face more demands. Emily, the laundry's piling up. Mom would complain as I walk in the door. I'll get to it, I'd mutter, heading to the basement where the washer hums like an old friend while the clothes spin. I'd pull out my phone, hidden in my pocket, and check the flight school app I'd downloaded in secret. It started small. That rebellion of mine, a few online courses here and there, paid for with tips I hid in a jar under my bed. I'd study late at night, under the covers with a flashlight, learning about aerodynamics and navigation, my heart racing with excitement. One evening, after a particularly rough shift where a customer yelled at me for no reason, I came home to find my parents and Jake in the living room planning their big vacation. We're flying business class to Hawaii, Dad announced, waving the tickets like a trophy. Thanks to Emily's hard work, right? Jake grinned. Yeah. So you're the best. I stood there, dripping from the rain outside, feeling invisible, glad I could help. I said, my voice flat, but inside, something stirred. They were using my money for luxury while mocking my passion for flying. That night, as I lay in bed, I applied for an advanced pilot training program using the last of my secret stash. Weeks blurred into months, my days a cycle of dishes, mockery, and hidden study sessions. I'd practice simulations on my laptop in the diner's break room when no one was looking, imagining the cockpit controls in my hand. Emily, you daydreaming again. Carla caught me once, peering over my shoulder, just checking emails. I lied, closing the tab quickly. She raised an eyebrow, but let it go. Whatever keeps you going. Kid, at home, the ridicule never stopped. Still thinking about that silly pilot thing? Mom asked one dinner, passing the potatoes to Jake first. It's not silly, I whispered, but they didn't hear, too busy praising Jake's latest A in accounting. Dad laughed. Come on, be realistic. Planes are for men like your uncle was, not for you. I gripped my fork tighter, the metal digging into my palm, but I said nothing. Instead, I channeled it into my training, pushing harder, acing virtual tests that made me feel alive. Then, the day came that changed everything. I was at work, elbow deep in suds, when my phone buzzed with an email. I wiped my hands on my apron and snuck to the bathroom to read it. Congratulations, Emily, it said. You've completed your certification requirements. You're now a licensed commercial pilot. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen, the words blurring through tears. Captain Emily, it had a ring to it, but I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not with the family still treating me like their personal ATM. That evening, as I drove home, I felt a spark of hope amid the exhaustion. They had no idea what I'd achieved, and maybe that was the best part. For the first time, I saw a way out, a future where I wasn't just the dishwasher funding their dreams. Little did I know their vacation plans would bring everything crashing together in ways I never expected. But for now, I kept my secret close, washing dishes by day and dreaming of the skies by night. With my pilot certification tucked away like a hidden treasure, I threw myself into the next phase of my training, determined to make something of myself despite everything. I started attending in-person classes at the flight school on the outskirts of town, a place called Skyward Aviation, where the hangars smelled of fuel and freedom, and the instructors treated you like you belonged up there in the clouds. I'd squeeze in sessions after my diner shifts, changing out of my greasy apron in the car and pulling on a clean shirt before walking through those doors, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear that someone from home might spot me. One afternoon, after a grueling lesson on emergency procedures where I practiced stalls in the simulator, I sat in the break room, sipping bad coffee from a styrofoam cup, my muscles aching from the tension. My mentor, Captain Harris, a grizzled guy in his 50s with a mustache that looked like it had seen 1,000 flights, plopped down across from me. He wiped sweat from his brow and leaned forward, his eyes sharp under those bushy brows. Good work today, Emily, he said, his voice rough but kind. You're picking this up faster than most. What's driving you so hard? Family pushing you. I hesitated, stirring my coffee with a plastic stick, watching the swirls as memories flooded back. Not exactly pushing me, I replied, keeping my tone even, more like holding me back. They've always said girls like me don't belong in the cockpit, that I should stick to washing dishes. He raised an eyebrow, setting his cup down with a thud. That's bullshit. Pardon my language. Who's telling you that crap? Your folks. Yeah, my parents, I admitted, feeling a weight lift just saying it out loud. They make me pay for my brother's tuition with my job, mock my dreams every chance they get. It's like I'm just there to fund their golden boy. Captain Harris nodded slowly, crossing his arms over his chest. I've heard stories like that before. Families can be the toughest critics. But listen, kid, you've got talent. Don't let them clip your wings. Keep at it. And prove 'em wrong. His words stuck with me as I drove home that evening, the sun dipping low over the suburban rooftops, casting long shadows across the lawns. I felt a spark of resolve growing inside me, something stronger than the endurance I'd relied on for years, but I wasn't ready to confront anyone yet. I pulled into our driveway, the same modest house with its peeling paint and overgrown bushes, and slipped inside quietly, hoping to avoid the usual interrogation. But as I hung up my keys in the hallway, I heard voices from the living room, my parents and Jake laughing about something. I paused, pressing against the wall, my ears straining to catch the words. Mom was waving a brochure, her voice excited. Look at this. Hawaii in business class. We'll be sipping Mai Tais while the world flies by below us. Dad chuckled, leaning back in his recliner with a beer in hand, and it's all thanks to Emily's hard work at that diner. Who knew scrubbing plates could buy us luxury? Jake grinned, sprawled on the couch with his laptop open. Yeah, she's the real MVP. Too bad she can't join us work calls, right? I stood there frozen, my fists clenching at my sides as humiliation washed over me again. Hot and familiar, they were planning this trip with my money, the same money they forced me to hand over every paycheck, while dismissing my job as worthless in the next breath. I slipped upstairs to my room without them noticing, closing the door softly and sinking onto my bed, the springs creaking under my weight. That night, unable to sleep, I rummaged through my old emails on my phone, scrolling back years to when I'd first begged for help with flight school tuition. There it was, an old message from Dad, cold and final. Emily, we've talked about this. Your brother's education comes first. We can't waste money on your little hobby. Focus on contributing to the family. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as anger built inside me, a small twist that felt like the first real evidence of their favoritism staring back at me. I'd forgotten about that email, buried it deep to keep the peace, but now it fueled something new, a budding resolve to use it someday, maybe as leverage, if things got worse. I saved a screenshot, tucking it away in a hidden folder, my mind racing with possibilities. The next day at the diner, during my shift, I scrubbed pots with extra vigor, the clanging metal echoing my frustration. Carla noticed, wiping her hands on a towel as she approached. You okay? You look like you're trying to murder that saucepan. I forced a laugh, rinsing off the suds under the faucet. Just family stuff. You know, they're planning a fancy vacation on my dime, acting like my job's a joke. She shook her head, leaning against the counter. Families can be a pain. Mine was the same, always favoring my sister. But you gotta stand up for yourself eventually. Her words echoed Captain Harris's, stirring that resolve even more. After work, I headed back to flight school for an evening class on navigation, where I aced a quiz that had the other students grumbling. As I packed up my notes, Captain Harris pulled me aside again, handing me a pamphlet for advanced certifications. You're ready for this, Emily, he said firmly. But if your family's giving you grief, maybe it's time to think about boundaries. Document everything, emails, conversation. You never know when you'll need proof. I nodded, slipping the pamphlet into my bag. Thanks. I actually found an old email today that proves how they've always put my brother first. It hurts, but it's motivating me to keep going. He clapped me on the shoulder. That's the spirit. Use it as fuel. And remember, up there in the sky, none of that ground noise matters. Driving home, I felt the tension rising inside me, a shift from just enduring their ridicule to actively building my case. Even if silently for now, I kept my progress hidden, smiling through dinner that night as they chattered about the trip, dropping hints about upgrades and excursions. We're going to live it up, Mom said, passing me the salad last. As always, sounds great, I replied, my voice steady. But inside, I was plotting my own ascent, gathering those small pieces of evidence, like weapons for a future battle. The humiliation still stung, but for the first time, I saw a path to counter it, even if it meant staying in the shadows a little longer. As the weeks passed, my training intensified with early morning flights in a small Cessna, the thrill of takeoff making me forget the drudgery at home for a while. I'd land back on the runway, adrenaline pumping, and head straight to the diner, where the routine grounded me again. One shift. As I cleared tables, I overheard a customer complaining about entitled families, and it hit too close, reminding me of my own. That evening, back in my room, I pulled up that old email again, reading it over, letting the words sink in. It was my first real leverage, a clue planted long ago that foreshadowed the favoritism I'd always known but never challenged. I confided in no one else, keeping it close, but the resolve grew, shifting me from passive sacrifice to quiet preparation. The family's vacation plans loomed closer, their excitement building while mine simmered beneath the surface. I knew I had to stay hidden for now, avoiding any confrontation that could derail my dreams, but the intrigue was mounting, and I could feel the storm coming. The day of their big vacation finally arrived, and I was up before dawn, my stomach twisting with a mix of nerves and something sharper, like anticipation mixed with dread. I'd landed my first gig as captain for a commercial airline just a few weeks earlier. After grinding through those final simulations and exams at Skyward Aviation, it was a short-haul flight from our city to Hawaii, the same route my family had booked for their trip. But I had no idea they'd be on my plane until I checked the manifest during pre-flight briefing. There they were, listed in business class: Mom, Dad, and Jake. Seats 2A, 2B, and 2C. I stared at the screen for a second. My coffee cup paused halfway to my mouth, feeling a chill run down my spine. Captain Harris had mentioned during training that cockpit monitors could pick up cabin audio for safety reasons, a little detail he dropped casually one day while we reviewed protocols. I shook it off, focusing on the checklist, running through engine starts and weather reports with my co-pilot, Mike, a steady guy in his 40s who'd flown these routes 100 times. We taxied out smoothly, the plane rumbling under my hands as I gripped the yoke, announcing takeoff clearance over the intercom in my calm, professional voice. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Emily speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 247 to Honolulu. We'll be cruising at 35,000 feet today. I kept it neutral, no hint of the storm brewing inside me. The ascent was textbook, the city shrinking below us like a toy model. And for a moment, I lost myself in the joy of it, the clouds parting like they were welcoming me home. But about 30 minutes in, as we hit cruising altitude, the first call came from the cabin crew. Sarah, the lead flight attendant, buzzed the cockpit, her voice tense over the headset. "Captain, we've got some unruly passengers in business class," she said, keeping it low. "They're complaining about a minor delay in drink service due to turbulence warnings. It's getting verbal." I glanced at Mike, who raised an eyebrow but stayed focused on the instruments. "Details?" I asked, my heart starting to pound harder. "They're demanding upgrades or refunds, calling us incompetent. One guy's yelling about how his money pays our salaries." I swallowed, knowing exactly who that was. "Monitor it closely. I'll check the feeds." Hanging up, I switched on the cabin audio monitor, that planted feature from training kicking in just like Harris had described. The voices crackled through, clear as day, and there was Dad's booming tone laced with that familiar entitlement. "What kind of operation is this? We paid for business class, not some cattle car. Get us those drinks now, or I'll have your job." Mom chimed in, her voice sharp and whiny. "Exactly. My son here is a future CEO, and we're not waiting around like peasants. Hurry up." Jake laughed. "Adding fuel, ooh?" "Yeah. Come on. Sis, wait. Not you. But you know what I mean? Service should be instant." I froze in my seat, the humiliation from all those years washing over me like a wave. Hot and suffocating. They were abusing the flight attendants, people just doing their jobs, over nothing, a safety delay I'd announced myself. It crossed every line I'd drawn in my mind, the one boundary I never thought they'd breach. Publicly humiliating service workers, especially in a world tied to my dream. My hands shook on the controls for a split second, but Mike didn't notice, busy with altitude adjustments. I breathed deep, forcing calm, and radioed Sarah back. "Send me statements from the crew. I need details for the report." She agreed, and within minutes, my tablet pinged with quick notes. "Passenger in 2B mail. Older threatened to sue over poor service. Female in 2. A demeaned attendant's appearance." Younger male in 2C joined in, laughing. Attached was a snippet of cabin footage from the onboard cameras, showing Dad red-faced, pointing at Sarah as she backed away politely. I reviewed it quickly, the video confirming everything, their faces clear and voices unmistakable. It was like watching a replay of our family dinners, but worse out in public. On my flight, the shock hit me hard, resurfacing all that old pain, the ridicule and sacrifices I'd buried to keep the peace. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the clouds outside the windshield, feeling tears prick my eyes, but blinking them away. Mike glanced over. "You okay?" "Cap. Looks like family drama down there." I nodded, wiping my face quickly. "Yeah, just handling it. Let's keep her steady." But inside, the humiliation burned fresh me. The captain they'd mocked for dreaming of this, now listening to them tear down my crew. I investigated further, pulling up the full manifest and cross-checking their booking details. Turns out, they'd used points from a credit card tied to my old diner paychecks. the ones I'd handed over without question. It was another twist of the knife, evidence of how they'd always taken from me. I gathered more from Sarah over the comms. They mentioned knowing people in high places, tried to intimidate us. Got it, I replied. Stand by. The peak of it all came when the audio picked up Mom saying, "If my daughter was here, she'd be washing your trays, not flying this thing." Useless dreams. They had no idea I was upfront, but those words sliced deep, reigniting the neglect and favoritism I'd endured. I sat there, the plane humming around me, feeling the weight of it press down. Part of me wanted to storm back there, expose everything right then. But I held back, my professional duty kicking in. I couldn't risk the flight, the passengers, my career. Instead, I noted it all, the footage, statements, even a quick witness account from another attendant via text. It was my leverage, building quietly. Mike broke the silence, we alerting security on landing. I hesitated, the tension coiling tight in my chest. Yeah, but let's keep it professional. No scenes mid-air at the Sartor. He nodded. Smart. Family or not, rules are rules. I didn't correct him on the family part, just focused on the horizon. The decision hanging heavy, act as captain first, daughter second. The humiliation surged again, but I pushed it down, ending the moment with a deep breath. Knowing this was just the start, the plane leveled out, but my mind raced. The first real conflict peaking as I chose restraint over rage. At least for now, as we continued the flight, minor turbulence jostled us, mirroring the chaos below. Sarah updated me once more. They're calming a bit, but still grumbling. Good, I said. Document everything. I reviewed the footage again, pausing on their faces, the entitlement plain as day. It was my moral line, shattered abusing others like they abused me. But now in my domain, the initial shock faded into a cold resolve, but I stayed put. Professionalism winning out. The beat of my heart slowed. The decision made. Handle this on the ground, not in the air. We were about halfway through the flight when things started to shift in a way that made my stomach drop harder than any turbulence could. I had just finished reviewing that cabin footage again in the cockpit, watching my family's faces twisted in anger as they berated Sarah and the other attendants over those delayed drinks. Mike, my co-pilot, kept glancing at me while he monitored the autopilot. But he didn't say much at first, just adjusted his headset and checked the fuel levels like it was any other routine leg. I radioed down to Sarah to alert airport security on arrival, keeping my voice steady as I explained the situation with the unruly passengers in business class, citing the verbal abuse and threats as clear violations of airline policy. She confirmed she had the witness statements ready, including notes from 2 other crew members who had backed her up during the incident. And I felt a brief surge of control knowing we had solid evidence lined up. But then the comms buzzed again, and Sarah's voice came through tense and hurried. Captain, the passengers in 2A through 2C are escalating things now, she said. Her words clipped like she was trying to stay professional under pressure. They're claiming discrimination, saying we're targeting them because of their age or something. And the older man is dropping names, talking about connections to some local business leaders back home. I leaned forward in my seat, gripping the armrest as the plane hummed steadily through the clouds, and asked her to elaborate. What exactly are they saying? Give me details so I can log it. He's yelling about how his son is in business school and they deserve better treatment, Sarah replied, her breathing a bit heavy, like she had just stepped away from the confrontation. The woman's backing him up, saying we'll regret this and threatening to call their lawyer mid-flight if we don't apologize and comp their tickets. Mike looked over at me. Then, his eyebrows raised under his cap. Sounds like they're trying to flip the script, he muttered, flipping a switch to check the altimeter. Want me to handle the descent prep while you deal with this? I nodded, feeling the weight of it all pressing down as I switched back to the audio monitor to listen in. There was Dad's voice booming through the feed, loud enough that it echoed in my headset. This is outrageous. We're respectable people, and you're treating us like criminals over a little complaint. My boy's got a bright future, and we know folks who can make sure this airline hears about it. Mom jumped in right after, her tone whiny but sharp. Exactly. We've flown business class before, and this is discrimination, plain and simple. You attendants are just power tripping because you can. We'll have the media on this if you don't back off. Jake's laugh cut through next, casual but edged with that same entitlement I knew too well from home. Come on, guys, lighten up. We're just asking for what we paid for. No need to involve security over nothing. I sat there staring at the instrument panel, the lights blurring a little as old doubts started creeping in, making my chest tighten like I couldn't quite catch my breath. All those years of keeping quiet, washing those endless dishes at the diner to fund Jake's tuition while they mocked my dreams, flashed through my mind. And suddenly I wondered if exposing them was worth the fallout that would come crashing down on our family. I pictured the arguments at home, the silent treatments that could stretch for months, and how Mom and Dad might turn everyone against me, painting me as the ungrateful one who betrayed them over a flight gone wrong. My hands felt clammy on the controls, and I wiped them on my uniform pants, trying to steady myself as the plane began its gradual descent, the engines whining softer now. Mike noticed my silence and turned in his seat. "Hey, Emily, you sure you're good? This seems personal," he said, his voice low so it didn't carry over the open line. I hesitated, then admitted a piece of it. Those passengers, they're my family. Parents and brother. I didn't know they'd be on this flight until takeoff. His eyes widened a bit, but he kept it professional. Damn, that's rough. But policy's policy. You can't let that slide, right? I know, I replied, forcing a nod as I adjusted the heading slightly to account for a wind shift. But what if this blows up everything? I've sacrificed so much for them already, and now I'm the one calling security. He shrugged, checking the radar for weather ahead. Family can be complicated, but abuse is abuse. You've got the footage and statements, that's your safety net. Still, the low point hit me hard as we dropped through a layer of clouds, the plane jostling just enough to remind me how fragile control could feel up here. I relived the neglect all over again, thinking about how they'd always put Jake first, using my money for their luxuries while dismissing my passion for flying as a joke. Was all my secret training, those late nights studying under the covers, worth tearing us apart? I questioned if my sacrifices had been for nothing, feeling vulnerable, like I was that kid again, scrubbing plates while they planned vacations without me. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them back, focusing on the descent checklist to ground myself. Then my personal phone buzzed in my pocket, a surprise since we were still at altitude and I had it on silent mode for emergencies. I pulled it out discreetly, seeing Jake's name on the screen, and answered with my headset plugged in so Mike couldn't overhear the whole thing. "Jake, what the hell? You can't call me now," I whispered, keeping my voice low as the cockpit fans whirred around us. It's me," he said, his tone hushed like he was hiding in the lavatory or something. "Look, I know things got out of hand up here. Mom and Dad are pissed. But I get it. The attendants didn't deserve that. I tried to calm them, but you know how they are." I gripped the phone tighter, glancing at the altimeter as we leveled off a bit. "You were laughing along with them, Jake. And now they're claiming discrimination to weasel out of it." He sighed, the sound crackling through the line. "Yeah, I know. I feel bad about it. It's just, they've always pushed me forward. Using your money and all. I should have said something sooner. This is partly my fault too." My breath caught, realizing this could be the leverage I needed. A recorded confession right there on my phone since I'd hit record out of habit from training sessions. "You admit it then, that they favored you, taken from me to fund your school and this trip." There was a pause. Then he muttered, "Yeah, I do. It's not fair, Em. I'm sorry. Just don't let this ruin everything." "Okay, I won't blush," I said, my voice steadier now as the despair started shifting into something quieter, more strategic. "But things have to change." He hung up after that, and I saved the recording, tucking my phone away as Mike announced we were 30 minutes from landing. The vulnerability lingered, but that call provided a new piece of evidence, tying back to their motivations of protecting Jake's reputation and their own image while chasing those financial perks. I breathed deeper, the plane descending smoothly, and felt the low point easing into a plan. Security would meet us on the ground, and now I had more than just footage. I had Jake's words as leverage. The tension dropped for the moment, but I knew it was building towards something bigger as the runway lights came into view below. We were descending now, the plane tilting gently as Honolulu's lights twinkled below us like scattered stars, and I felt that spark of strategy from Jake's call turning into a full flame inside me. I had his recorded confession saved on my phone, along with the cabin footage and crew statements, and it was time to put it all together. I radioed ahead to airport security while Mike handled the final approach, telling them we had disruptive passengers in business class who needed escorting off the plane upon landing. They've been verbally abusive to the crew, I explained over the comms. Keeping my voice firm and professional, we have video evidence and witness accounts ready for review. Mike gave me a thumbs up as he adjusted the flaps, the engines whining down. You're handling this like a pro. Emily, whatever's going on with your family, you've got the high ground now. I nodded, pulling up my tablet to dig deeper into their booking details during those last minutes in the air. That's when I uncovered more dirt falsified expense logs from our family accounts, showing how Mom and Dad had skimmed my diner paychecks. Not just for Jake's tuition, but for extras like this trip's upgrades. They'd listed it as business expenses for Jake's future ventures. But it was all tied back to my earnings, clear as day in the digital trail I'd accessed through the airline's passenger system. It hit me then. Their motivations crystal clear, protecting their reputation as the perfect parents while chasing those financial perks, all at my expense. Tension built in my chest as we touched down smoothly, the wheels screeching on the runway, and I taxied us to the gate, my mind racing ahead to the confrontation. As the seatbelt sign dinged off, I unbuckled and stood up, smoothing my captain's uniform before stepping out of the cockpit. The cabin door hissed open, and there they were, my family, gathering their carry-ons in business class. Oblivious at first, Sarah met me at the front, handing over a printed stack of the crew statements, her face set in determination. "Security's waiting outside," she whispered. "We've got your back." "Thanks," I replied, taking the papers and clipping my phone's recording to the file. I walked down the aisle, passengers murmuring as they deplaned around us. And that's when Dad spotted me first, his face going slack like he'd seen a ghost. "Emily." You're the captain," he stammered, dropping his bag with a thud, his eyes wide under those bushy brows. Mom whipped around next, her handbag clutched tight, and Jake froze midway through grabbing his laptop. "Oh my God, it was you up there." Mom gasped, her voice pitching up. "This is some kind of joke, right?" I stopped a few feet away, crossing my arms over my chest, feeling the empowerment surge through me as their shock hit full force. "No joke, Mom. I've been flying for months now, certified and all, but that's not why I'm here. Your behavior on this flight crossed the line, abusing the attendants over nothing." Dad recovered quick, his face reddening as he stepped forward, pointing a finger sour at me. "You can't be serious. We were just complaining a little. You're blowing this out of proportion because of some grudge." "Grudge," I shot back, holding up the tablet with the footage paused on his yelling face. "This is evidence, Dad. Video from the cabin cameras, statements from the crew. You threatened their jobs, called them names, and Jake, you laughed right along." Jake shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the exiting passengers who were starting to stare. Come on, let's talk this out privately. We're family." "Family," Mom interjected, her eyes narrowing as she grabbed Dad's arm. "Emily, you've always been jealous of Jake. This is your way of getting back at us for supporting him. We did what was best for everyone." I felt the tension escalate, their desperate pleas turning to insults just like I'd expected, revealing how far they'd go to protect their image. "Best for everyone? You mean best for your reputation and Jake's perks. I found the expense logs, you falsified them, using my money for this luxury while mocking my dreams." Dad's voice rose, drawing more attention. "That's nonsense. We helped you too, giving you a home, food on the table. You're ungrateful, always have been." An unexpected voice cut in from behind me, then a fellow passenger, an older woman in row 3 who'd been quiet the whole flight, standing up with her phone in hand. "I saw the whole thing," she said firmly, stepping forward as security appeared at the jet bridge door. They were rude from takeoff, demanding special treatment. I recorded some of it on my phone if you need another witness. I turned to her, surprised but grateful, as she handed her device to Sarah. "Thank you," I said, feeling that emotional payoff build, my growing empowerment solidifying with this ally's testimony adding to my leverage. "Ma'am, that means a lot. We'll include this in the report." Mom's face paled, her grip on Dad tightening. "You can't do this, Emily. Think about what people will say, our friends, the neighbors. We'll lose everything. That's your motivation talking," I replied, my voice steady as security approached, 2 officers in uniform nodding to me. "Reputation over everything, even treating people right, but safety comes first on my flights, and you've endangered that with your entitlement." Jake tried one last plea, his eyes pleading. "Sis, please." I admitted it on the phone. "It's not fair, what they've done. But don't ban us for life. We can fix this." I shook my head, handing the full file to the lead officer, who skimmed it quickly. "It's not just me deciding. Jake, airline policy, permanent ban for threats and abuse, and those falsified logs, that could mean more trouble, like fraud charges if I push it." Dad exploded then, his voice booming. "Fraud? You're out of your mind. We built this family, and you're tearing it down over a flight." The officer stepped in, placing a hand on Dad's shoulder. "Sir, calm down or we'll have to cuff you. Captain's got solid evidence here. You're coming with us for questioning." Mom started tearing up, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Emily, how could you, after all we've done? All you've done is neglect me, favor Jake, and use my sacrifices," I countered, the words flowing out as the cabin emptied, leaving just us and the crew. "But I'm done enduring it. This is me standing up." The woman passenger nodded at me as she passed. "Good for you, dear." They had it coming. Her words boosted me further, the tension peaking as security escorted them off, Dad muttering insults under his breath while Mom pleaded one last time, "Wait, Emily, let's talk." But I turned away, coordinating with the officers outside the plane, watching as they led my family to a holding area. The evidence piled up: footage, statements, Jake's recording, those logs, and now the passenger's video making my case ironclad. My heart raced with a mix of hurt and triumph, knowing this reversal was silencing their excuses, their motivations laid bare for all to see. As the jet bridge cleared, Sarah patted my shoulder. "You okay, Captain?" "Yeah," I said, exhaling slowly. "Better than okay." This is the start of something new. The empowerment washed over me fully then, building toward the final payoff I knew was coming. But for now, the storm was raging, and I was right in the eye, stronger than ever. Security had my family halfway down the jet bridge when I made the call that changed everything. I stepped back into the cockpit for just a second, grabbed the PA microphone, and flicked the switch that piped my voice through the entire plane and out to the gate area where passengers were still milling around. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hand stayed steady on the mic. Mike stayed in his seat, watching me with quiet respect, while Sarah stood at the door, ready to back me up. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Emily again," I said, my voice clear and strong over the speakers, echoing through the cabin and into the terminal. Due to repeated verbal abuse, threats against crew members, and disruptive behavior during Flight 247, the passengers in seats 2A, 2B, and 2, see, my own parents and brother are receiving a permanent ban from this airline and all partner carriers. Effective immediately, I paused, letting the words hang in the air. Their father. Gasps rippled from the few passengers still gathering their bags near the front. Dad stopped dead in his tracks, spinning around so fast his carry-on slammed into the wall. Mom clutched her chest like she might faint, and Jake went pale, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "Emily, you can't do this," Dad bellowed, lunging back toward the plane door. "Fight." One of the security officers grabbed his arm, but Dad shook him off. "We're your family. Turn that damn thing off." I didn't. Instead, I held up my tablet so the officers could see it clearly, and I tapped play on the cabin footage. The video filled the small screen. Dad red-faced, jabbing his finger at Sarah, yelling, "We'll have your jobs." Mom's voice came next, sharp and cutting. "My son is going to be somebody, and you're nothing." Jake's laugh followed, cold and mocking. The audio played loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, including the cluster of passengers who had stopped to watch. Mom's face crumpled. "Please, honey, turn it off. People are staring." This is humiliating. Humiliating. I stepped out of the cockpit again, mic still in hand, and walked right up to the jet bridge entrance so they could see me in full uniform. "You think this is humiliating? Try washing dishes for 12 years so your brother could go to business school while you laughed at my dream of flying. Try handing over every paycheck while you called me useless." Jake looked at the floor, then at the officers. "Gamba Arsasars. I told you on the phone, I know it's not fair, but a lifetime ban. Will never fly again. Mom and Dad will lose their minds." I lowered the mic, but kept it live so the gate could still hear. "You want mercy. Tell them the truth about the money. The expense logs I found show you 3 falsified everything listing my diner wages as business investments for your failed startup." Dad's eyes darted to Jake, then back to me. "That's private family business." "Not anymore," I said. I nodded to the lead officer, who was already reviewing the logs on my tablet. "Show them the rest." Jake swallowed hard, his shoulders slumping. The twist hit then, the one I hadn't seen coming until he spoke. "The startup, it tanked 6 months ago. Mom and Dad kept pouring your money into it. My money too, trying to save it. They mismanaged every cent. That's why they needed this trip so bad. To look successful for the relatives in Hawaii. It's all gone. I tried to stop them, but..." Mom gasped and slapped his arm. "Jake, shut your mouth." But it was too late. The words hung there, raw and ugly, tying every sacrifice I'd made straight back to their greed. Dad's face went from red to gray. "You had no right to dig into that." "I had every right," I answered, my voice rising just enough for the intercom to carry it. "You crossed the only line I ever drew. Treating people like trash because you think your comfort matters more. Crew, passengers, me, your own daughter. Your greed and your need to look perfect destroyed everything. My dreams, Jake's future, our family." The older woman from row 3 stepped forward again, holding up her phone. "I sent my video to the airline already. It's all here, the threats, the name-calling. You folks brought this on yourselves." Security tightened their grip on Dad's arm. "Ma'am, we're taking them in for processing. The ban is official. They'll receive the paperwork and a no-fly list notice within the hour. Any further resistance and we'll add charges." Mom started crying, for real now, tears streaking her makeup. "Emily, please. We're sorry. We didn't know you were the captain. We never would have." "Exactly." I cut in. "You never would have if you thought I mattered. But I do. I earned these wings while you were busy counting my tips, and now the sky is mine, not yours." Dad tried one last time, voice cracking. "We'll fix this. We'll pay you back. Just don't." "No," I said simply, clicking off the PAA. The silence that followed felt heavier than any engine roar. Jake wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom's sobs echoed down the jet bridge. Dad just stood there, broken, the entitlement finally stripped away. I handed the tablet to the officer. Every piece of evidence video, statements, Jake's recording, the logs now in official hands. My family was led away, heads down, the weight of their own choices crushing them. The remaining passengers clapped quietly as I turned back toward the cockpit, the sound rolling through the gate like distant thunder. Sarah touched my elbow. "You did what was right, Captain." I nodded, the adrenaline still buzzing in my veins. The clash was over their greed against my justice. And for the first time, justice had won, but the real payoff was waiting just beyond this moment. When the dust settled and I could finally fly free, the jet bridge cleared out fast after security hauled my family away. The echoes of Mom's sobs fading into the terminal bustle, like a bad dream finally ending. I stood there for a second, watching them disappear around the corner. Dad's shoulders slumped for the first time I could remember. Jake glancing back with that guilty look in his eyes. Sarah, the lead flight attendant, squeezed my arm gently as she passed by with the rest of the crew, her face still flushed from the ordeal, but smiling now. "Captain Emily, you were amazing up there. The way you handled that professional and tough. The airline's going to hear about this from all of us. I nodded, feeling the adrenaline crash a bit, my legs shaky as I walked back into the empty plane to grab my things from the cockpit. Mike was already powering down the systems, flipping switches with that steady rhythm he had. "Hey, he said, looking up from the panel. That was some family reunion. You okay? Need a minute." "Yeah, I'm good," I replied, slinging my bag over my shoulder, just wrapping my head around it. "Thanks for having my back in there." He chuckled softly, standing up and clapping me on the back. "No thanks needed. You upheld the standards. That's what captains do. Security's got the evidence, your tablet, the recordings, all of it. They'll process the fines and the ban. Disruptive behavior like that could be a couple thousand each, plus the no-fly list. Deserved. If you ask me." We stepped off the plane together, the ground crew nodding at us as we headed toward the terminal offices. My phone buzzed in my pocket almost immediately. A text from the airline's office manager popping up on the screen. "Captain, report to HQ briefing room ASAP. Incident review." I showed it to Mike, and he grinned. "See? You're not in trouble. This is your moment." The briefing room was a stark white space with a long table and screens on the walls, already filled with a few execs when I walked in. Still in my uniform, the head of safety, a woman named Lisa in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense bob, stood up and shook my hand firmly. "Captain Emily, we've reviewed the prelims, the footage, crew statements, even that passenger video. You did everything by the book. In fact, we're commending you for it. Upholding passenger and crew safety in a high-pressure situation like that. It's exemplary." I sat down across from her, the weight lifting off my chest as she pulled up the files on the big screen. There it all was. Dad's threats playing out in high def. Mom's insults. Jake's confession audio I'd forwarded. "These passengers, your relatives, we understand face a permanent ban across our network," Lisa continued, clicking through slides, "and we're pursuing civil fines for the disruption. Could hit $5,000 per person, given the threats. Plus, if those falsified logs you mentioned hold up, that might loop in legal for fraud review." One of the other execs, a guy in a suit, leaned forward. "We're also bumping you up, Emily. Promotion to senior captain. Effective next month. Comes with a pay bump and route choices. You've earned your independence here." I blinked, the words sinking in as they handed me a commendation letter right there, printed and signed. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady but my hands trembling a little as I took it. "I just did what was right," Lisa nodded, "and that's why we're celebrating it. Crew's already spreading the word. You're a hero today." Back in the terminal, I changed into civvies in the staff lounge, the commendation tucked safely in my bag. My phone buzzed again, this time a call from Jake. I stared at the screen for a ring or two, then answered, stepping into a quiet corner near the windows overlooking the tarmac. "Jake," I said flatly. "What?" I'm sorry," he started, his voice cracking a bit over the line. "Everything blew up. Mom and Dad are in some holding room, yelling at lawyers on the phone. The fines, they're freaking out. And the ban. We can't even get home now. Have to rent a car or something." I watched a plane taxi by outside, its engines roaring to life. "You think I'm happy about this, but you all earned it. The abuse, the favoritism, using my money for your messes. Your startup failed because of their mismanagement, and you let it happen." He sighed heavily. "I know. I should have spoken up years ago about the money. The way they treated you. I was scared of losing their support. But now, everything's fractured. Mom won't talk to me. Dad's blaming everyone. They're isolated. No more family vacations. No more pretending we're perfect." "Good," I replied, feeling a pang but pushing it down. Maybe it'll make them reflect. "But Jake, if you're really remorseful, prove it. Pay me back what you can. Start standing on your own." There was a pause. Then he muttered, "I will. Starting now. Take care. Sis." He hung up, and I pocketed the phone, heading out to the parking lot where my car waited. The drive home was quiet, the suburban streets rolling by under the evening sun, our cramped house coming into view with its familiar peeling paint. But it didn't feel like a trap anymore. I packed a bag that night, just essentials, and called a realtor friend about listings time to find my own place, with that promotion securing the down payment. A few days later, back at work, the airline threw a small celebration in the crew lounge cake. Claps, even a plaque with my name on it for outstanding service. Sarah raised a toast with her coffee cup to Captain Emily, who showed us all how to stand tall. Everyone cheered, and I smiled, cutting into the cake. Thanks, team. Couldn't have done it without you. Word got around fast, my family facing those fines, the band sticking like glue, their relationships cracking under the pressure. Mom and Dad holed up at home, neighbors whispering about the airport drama that hit local news as a family flight feud. Jake texted updates, sounding more independent each time. But our parents were left stewing in their isolation, their greed and entitlement finally biting back. As for me, I took to the skies on my next flight, gripping the yoke as we lifted off, the clouds welcoming me like old friends. No more dishes, no more mockery, just freedom up here, where resilience had carried me through the ridicule to this triumph. I glanced at the empty co-pilot seat for a second, mic on break, and whispered to myself, "You did it." Inner peace settled in there, deep and real. As the plane leveled out, the world below looked small, my past even smaller. I was flying free, finally, and nothing could ground me now.